It's a new calendar year, it's a new wrestling year, it's a new WrestleMania season, but some things never change, like you guys and me sitting down and talking about some of your questions. Let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with the January edition of Ask the Phoenix. Little minute, if I may, if you're seeing this for the first time and you want your questions to be answered in the next Q&A, which is going to be in March, put them down in the comment section below. This is Ask the Phoenix. This is my bi-monthly Q&A series. Used to do them monthly, used to do a lot of things differently. Basically, here's the deal. I'm going to do the Q&A. We're doing this the week leading into the Royal Rumble. Predictably enough, the next Q&A is going to be the week leading into WrestleMania. Quite simple. Put your questions down in the box below. If you have me on other forms of social media, you can send me questions there. You can send me questions on Twitter. You can send me questions on Facebook. But I will tell you right now that if you do that, there's a very good chance I could miss the question, I could misplace it, I could forget about it entirely. I really don't want to do that. So the best scenario for you is to put it down in this question box below, because this is where they're all going to collect. I've gone back and forth on the limitations. I used to say no limit, and then I said, because people literally sent me 100 questions, and Zohan, I think I'm looking at you, I limited it to 10 for like a year, and then I sort of pulled back on that, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to limit it to 10, but sort of do it within reason. If you want to send me 1 or 2, that's great. If you want to send me 11 instead of 10, that's fine. If you want to drop me a few and then you think of a few more and you want to send me a second message with those few more, all good. Usually it's the usual suspects in this particular series, and this month is no exception. This month's questions are coming from Cheney815, Mizark10, and Gary Monahan. So you know, those of you that have been watching this for a long time know that those are some very familiar and very loyal names in this channel. Sorry, my glasses are fucked. The nose piece is fucked, so I'm gonna be adjusting, and like it's gonna just look like I'm poking myself in the face a lot. So ignore that. I will honestly say, minimize your screen and just listen to this like it's a podcast. You're probably going to be better off. But let's get down to it. Cheney815 prefaces his questions with, just because it's called the Big Four doesn't mean there should be only 4 Big Fours. Please bear with me on this. Question 1. Do you think Money in the Bank can serve or has served as an acceptable substitute for the King of the Ring in June to complement WWE's Big Four? I miss the King of the Ring. I like tournaments. With all the tournaments WWE's been doing recently, including what we're in right now, the Mixed Match Challenge, I think WWE has put together some fantastic tournaments. Mixed Match Challenge, we're only 2 matches in, but it's a lot of fun. The UK tournament, I don't like the fact that it was all done in one weekend. I thought that was a little bit sketch, but other than that, it was fine. The Mae Young Classic would have been great if they hadn't dropped it Netflix style. The Cruiserweight Classic sort of set the bar for all these other ones. So with all these happening, I don't understand why they won't do the King of the Ring. I did have a thought where King of the Ring just uses current talent, but WWE are using all these tournaments to bring up new talent, new women in the women's tournament, new cruiserweights in the Cruiserweight Championship thing. I mean, you recreated the Cruiserweight Championship out of that. They did the UK tournament to bring up new UK talent and create that championship. So if their logic was that they were only going to use tournaments to bring awareness to new stars, I could have swallowed that. But now they're doing the Mixed Match Challenge, which is nothing but established stars. So I really don't know. King of the Ring, I wish it would come back. I don't think it has to be an either or. I don't think one is a substitute for the other. They're 2 very different, very fun concepts, and I don't really think you can... I don't think you can put them back to back and compare them, because they're just too different. You get a tournament of 6 or 8 people, that's a whole pay-per-view. You've got a Money in the Bank match of 6 or 8 people. It's a fun match, but it's only one match on the card. It's very hard to compare. Besides SummerSlam, because they've already did that one in 1992, which Big Four pay-per-view is most likely to go to the UK? I'm going to be honest with you, man, and this is no offense to the fans in the UK, and this has nothing to do with the time difference or anything like that. WWE has, other than that SummerSlam, I don't think WWE's ever really done that great in the UK. I mean, when they go to the UK for a Raw or a SmackDown or a Takeover or whatever, the reception is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, WWE used to do UK specific pay-per-views. They did Rebellion, they did One Night Only, they did Capital Carnage, etc. And not only were they not received that well, I don't think the pay-per-views were done that great. Somebody that I don't particularly care for in the YWC, but it works for this particular point. Go check out a guy named Mark Pearson, who did the 10 Years Ago series, or used to do the 10 Years Ago. I mean, he's faded off into obscurity now, but he reviewed some of the old UK-specific pay-per-views, and they weren't that great, because the crowd shit on them, rightfully so, because they gave them shitty pay-per-views. So I don't think the UK would expect a lot from WWE, and I don't think the WWE wants to give UK anything particularly special. SummerSlam, that one SummerSlam you mentioned being the obvious exception. I mean, they did Takeover London, which was good. They did, what else did they do overseas? They did like the Beast in the East and that kind of thing. And, you know, some of this shit, you know, because it was so wonky over here with the time frames. Sorry guys, I just got off work. I'm thirsty as fuck. I don't think it's going to happen, is the end of it. And, you know, WWE, oh, you know, they're Americans, so they only care about what's going on in America. Well, if you're in the UK trying to watch WWE programming on the American schedule, you're already used to it, are you not? And plus, yes, WWE is a worldwide company, but they're a worldwide company based in the United States. I mean, I bitched a lot when they started the Mixed Match Challenge because we don't get Facebook Watch up here in Canada, which is a little bit shitty, and I joke around about that quite a bit. But at the end of the day, WWE is a worldwide company, but they're based in North America, so some of the things they do are going to be American-centric, and you can't exactly blame them for that. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they've experimented with some televised house shows, etc. I don't think you're going to get a Big Four pay-per-view in the UK. It sucks. But I mean, if it was over in the UK, WrestleMania would be happening at like lunchtime here, so fuck that. In the light of Paige's terrible circumstance, what would happen at the 2018 Women's Royal Rumble if Paige comes out at number 30 after all the previous entrants have eliminated each other? It would be a pretty bullshit, hollow victory. I think people would shit on the ending. Don't get me wrong, you guys know I'm a big, huge fan of Paige. But I think it would be patronizing to Paige. Oh, hey, you wrecked yourself. Let's give you a victory that you didn't earn that doesn't really mean anything. Because what are you going to get at the end of the day? You're going to get her having a match at Mania that's not going to be that great, because whoever she's working with is going to have to be super fucking cautious if the match even happens at all. I mean, if you did something like that and then she abdicated the win and gave it to one of her teammates in absolution, I don't know, if she gave her win to somebody like a Sonya Deville, it would be a cool, like, altruistic moment, but then at the same time, it would also totally invalidate the first ever Women's Royal Rumble, and I think a lot of people would shit on that. I mean, look at how people had a fucking SJW attack over the James Ellsworth thing with Carmella's briefcase. I don't see it winning, and if she can't wrestle anymore, I don't want her, even if she doesn't take a single bump, I don't want her stepping in the ring if she's gonna fuck up her neck, because that's, you know, you look at a superstar like Paige, and, you know, she's had enough bad luck in her time already, between the sex tapes and the leaks and the drug issues and the shit with Alberto Del Rio and the neck injury. We don't want to see this girl paralyzed. So as much as I would love that, as much as she could come out and cut a cocky promo the next night, you know, hey, I won the Women's Royal Rumble and I didn't even have to lift a finger, that would get her great heat if it was kayfabe. But her neck injury isn't kayfabe, and I don't think you can play with that. I'm not going to lie. Do you think the WWE is over-milking the brand warfare gimmick when it comes to Survivor Series? I actually don't. I actually really like it, because WWE knows that they can't sustain the illusion of this rivalry all year round. Like, the writing involved in sustaining this rivalry constantly is always going to be problematic. So if you keep them in their own little worlds, and basically play it up as, you know, you live in your little world, they live in their little world, and once a year we'll let you guys take a shot at each other. I don't think it's over milking it. I think it's keeping it appropriately limited. I always liked the bragging rights pay-per-view, and the fact that they've taken the bragging rights concept and applied it to Survivor Series. Now, the historian in me wants to say, well, why don't we just have 3 or 4 or 5 Raw versus SmackDown Survivor Series matches? But that just liquidates your entire roster. The problem with the way they do it is, yeah, you've got a 3-person team on Raw, you got a 3-person team on SmackDown, so we get New Day versus The Shield. You got Raw Tag Team Champions versus SmackDown Tag Team Champions. You've got, you know, one world champ versus another world champ, one women's champ versus another women's champ. Couple different problems here. There's one more title on Raw than there is on SmackDown, so it leaves one champion on Raw with nothing to do. Also, it means there's no actual championship matches on the show, which, you know, most people shit on Survivor Series, but it is still a Big 4 pay-per-view. You do need to have some titles in there at some point. It's why something like Night of Champions comes along and they plug, this is the night where all the titles on the line. Where, well, there shouldn't be just one night where all the titles are on the line. You especially come to a WrestleMania or a Survivor Series or a SummerSlam. Royal Rumble gets a pass because of the Rumble match. But in all those other things, all the titles should be represented. All the titles should be properly defended. Now, these days that makes for 10 or 11 matches. But that's kind of the point, is it not? Everybody else that's not there, that, you know, that doesn't have a title or doesn't have a title shot, hasn't earned it. Like, that story tells itself. The only thing you could do to make that make more sense is if you had, you know, some of the NXT stars in the mix, or if you had the Cruiserweight champion go up against the UK champion, which I wouldn't entirely be opposed to that either. But as far as do they milk the brand warfare gimmick? No, I think putting it on Survivor Series gives it one place to live so that the rest of the time the two shows can concentrate on being separate shows. Long-winded answer, I think the answer is no. Along with Starrcade, what would you consider to be the Big 4 pay-per-views of WCW? Now, you guys know I'm going to say it once again. I didn't watch a whole lot of WCW, but I would say Starrcade, Super Brawl, Great American Bash, and because of my own personal bias, Halloween Havoc, because I like Halloween, and that's just a fact. Same question, but for Impact Wrestling. Bound for Glory, Slammiversary, Hardcore Justice, and Destination X. Those are the pay-per-views that I remember. Haven't watched TNA in a long time, which makes it extra funny that I'm actually going to some Impact tapings over here at the Don Kolov in a couple of weeks. It's going to be good. Should they bring back King of the Ring and have it in June alongside Money in the Bank with Raw and SmackDown trading off every year? If they do both, then yeah, I would love to see it. Okay, Raw gets it 1 year, SmackDown gets it another year. But I think each of those concepts by itself, King of the Ring and Money in the Bank, they should be co-branded pay-per-views. I mean, if you're going to make a big tournament like King of the Ring is supposed to be, you need to use the rosters of both brands to get you there. I've always said that they should bring back King of the Ring, and much like Royal Rumble is the lead-in to WrestleMania, King of the Ring should be the lead-in to SummerSlam. Whoever wins the King of the Ring is the #1 contender for whatever champion they choose at SummerSlam, and then you get people occasionally hopping brands, etc. Same thing with Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank is going to be a co-branded pay-per-view this year, which I think somebody else asked me about later on. I think it should be a co-branded pay-per-view, but you shouldn't have 4 Money in the Bank matches. You have 1 women's match with women from Raw and SmackDown, 1 men's match with men from Raw and SmackDown, and the winner of that briefcase can cash in on any champion on either brand. I mean, the women can't cash in on the Universal Champion, but you get my point. They should both be co-branded pay-per-views. They should both be opportunities for people to surprise us and jump brands. Where are we? How much longer do you think Stone Cold would have wrestled had he not taken that pile driver spot from Owen Hart? SummerSlam 97. I don't know, but the thing is, and all due respect to Austin, you can't deny that the guy is one of, if not the biggest names that wrestling has ever produced. I don't know how Austin's style would work now. If he was still in like perfect health and whatever, I don't know how his style would work nowadays, because we're a lot more focused on athleticism and that indie style, as much as I hate to say that. I don't think he would fit. I mean, you could have him going in there and having brawls with somebody like a Sheamus, or I mean, Austin versus Lesnar would be interesting, but I don't know. The WWE is so different now in the way they present themselves and the way they present the athleticism, etc. I don't know. Would he still be around now? Maybe, possibly, potentially. I mean, Jericho's no spring chicken himself, but I don't know where he would fit. Speaking of Owen, do you think he should have beaten Bret Hart for the WWE title at Survivor Series 94 instead of Bob Backlund, especially considering the latter's reign only lasted 3 days? I'm always going to say that Owen Hart should have been a champion at some point. Now, where he picked it up and did he necessarily have to pick it up from his brother is something that's going to be more of a personalized opinion. I think it would have been cool. It's nice when you have a family rivalry. There's always that built-in storyline. Owen Hart definitely should have been WWE or WWF champion. I don't think it necessarily would have had to come from Bret, though. So take that as you will. How would you rebook WWE's general pay-per-view lineup? 6 co-branded pay-per-views. Throw in Money in the Bank as a co-branded pay-per-view. Throw in what's the other one we've been talking about? Throw in King of the Ring as a co-branded pay-per-view, and then there's 6 pay-per-views. There's 6 months of the year. The other 6 are 3 shows per brand. Does that work out? So Raw gets 3 shows a year, SmackDown gets 3 shows a year, and we have 6 co-branded shows. You have Money in the Bank, you have King of the Ring, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, WrestleMania. That's how you book it. You don't need more than 12 pay-per-views a year. I'm not including NXT. So whoever's going to jump on me and say, well, NXT has shows too, it's just different. It just is. But that's how I would do that. Thank you for that. Cheney, Mizark10 says, is Maven eliminating The Undertaker the biggest Royal Rumble what the fuck moment in history, if not what is? It's up there. I can't think off the top of my head of a time where somebody that... I liked Maven for the little bit of time he was in WWF. But, I mean, he was relatively nobody, especially when you compare him to somebody like The Undertaker. I can't think of another moment where a nobody like that eliminated somebody like The Undertaker. I mean, the equivalent these days would be, I mean, Enzo Amore, if the world wasn't fucking him over right now, eliminating John Cena. Like, that would be the equivalent. Or Enzo Amore eliminating Brock Lesnar. Like... I don't know. It's hard. One of the biggest sort of fucked up moments for me is I don't remember what year it was, but the year that the opening match was Daniel Bryan versus Bray Wyatt, and then we expected Daniel Bryan to come back in the Rumble. There was sort of a what the fuck moment. I mean, it was funny for me because I'm not a huge fan of Rey Mysterio, but when Rey Mysterio came out at 30, and it sort of solidified in everybody's minds that Daniel Bryan wasn't in the match, the amount of hate Rey Mysterio got in that moment, even though I don't like the guy, was a bit of a what the fuck moment. Drew Carey being in the Rumble and trying to bribe Kane to not kick the shit out of him was funny. If you've heard Jimmy Corderas interviewed, he still has one of those dollar bills that Drew Carey tried to bribe Kane with. So that's a couple of what the fuck moments. I mean, Santino with the 1 second elimination is always fun. I don't know. But as far as memorable, yeah, Maven eliminating The Undertaker is pretty good. The year where you had the Nexus 2.0 and the Core start off, and it was just a big brawl to start the Rumble, that was kind of cool. When the year that Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie were the first 2 men in the Rumble, and it started off like a hardcore match with the weapons, etc. That was a pretty what the fuck moment. But I don't know. Who is the best and who would the worst possible surprise entrant for the Women's Rumble be? Who I would pop for the most would be either Lita or AJ Lee. That's that. The worst is the woman that's apparently going to be doing guest commentary, and that's Stephanie McMahon. If Stephanie McMahon, if it's not bad enough that she's on commentary, if she steps up into that match, I'm going to say go fuck yourself. Because I said it last night in the prediction video that I did with Christian and Guapo. Go check that out. It's only one video behind this one. I was okay with Stephanie McMahon coming out, breaking kayfabe, making the announcement with all the roster around her and having that moment. I was okay with that, you know, breaking kayfabe, everybody sort of working together to have this big moment. It really seems like a self-induced pat on the back that she's put herself on commentary for this match. I don't... It's really, really sketchy and really, really feels like a selfish thing. If she goes from there to being in the match, then I think it's a step too far, and that'd probably be the worst possible one. Thank you, Ms. Arc10, for that. And last but not least, we have Gary Monahan, who says, "Hey Spaz Bud, I'm back with some questions for the January Q&A. What do you think of WWE releasing the man behind the music, Jim Jonsin?" It's weird for somebody that's been watching wrestling as long as me, because so much of the soundtrack of your life, as the cliche goes, was written by Jim Jonsin. But when I found out about that, obviously, first thing that I've heard and first thing a lot of people said is, this is a guy who might not be a wrestler, but this is a guy whose contributions have definitely earned him a place in the WWE Hall of Fame. Like, definitely. How many of the most key sounds and themes and whatever that this guy has put together are ingrained in our heads at almost the level of it's not even just a wrestling reference anymore. That being said, I couldn't find a whole lot on the story about it, like what led to it. Was he fired? Was he released? Did he ask for his release? Did he want to retire? Whatever. I know they've got the band CFO or CFO $, doing a lot of their stuff now, and they have done a lot of the themes for NXT that I really like. So I can't sit here and be like, oh my god, I miss Jim Jonsin. I wish Jim Jonsin was back, because what we're getting now is still good. I don't know who created what, but stuff like Aleister Black's entrance, Johnny Gargano's new theme, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, all these fun themes that people are singing along with loud and proudly at these shows have been produced by CFOs, I believe. If I'm wrong, somebody please correct me down in the box below, because I would really like to be corrected if that's wrong. As far as what do I think of him being released, obviously it's a loss to the company, but I don't know what led to that release, so I can't react any more than that. I'm sorry. Do you think Okada or Omega will ever end up in WWE, and will it be AJ Styles straight to the main roster type of thing, or NXT first? I don't care. I don't. I saw the Omega Jericho match, and it was a good match, and fine. And I trolled a whole lot about, you know, hey, it's great that Jericho helps out these new young upstarts and all that kind of shit. But, like, yeah, Omega Jericho was a good match, but it wasn't the, you know, 6-star wrestling orgasm that people played it up to be. And I don't know a single thing about Okada, so I don't... because Okada is apparently the last person that Omega had a great, you know, 6-star wrestling orgasm with. So I don't care, is the truth. If you want to have Omega show up in the Rumble and attack Jericho because they just had their match at Wrestle Kingdom, cool. If you want to introduce me to Okada, probably a better place to put him would be NXT. And now I know all the New Japan fans are like, oh my god, that's such a disrespect. How did he not go to the main roster? But I mean, they said the same thing about Shinsuke Nakamura, and now they want him back down there. So, I mean, it is what it is. I can't muster the fucks to give. I really, really can't. Why do WWE continue to treat their fans like handicapped retards? For example, Brock fucks off with the title and doesn't defend it in the proper time and doesn't get it taken off of him, where somebody else gets a minor injury and they get stripped of the championship. They even said we haven't seen Steph since WrestleMania, and who doesn't remember her coming down to Vince's aid on SmackDown? Now, I will say, when they say, oh, we haven't seen her since WrestleMania, that's in kayfabe, obviously. When she came down to help her dad, that's where they were trying to play off a really, really serious, dramatic, like breaking of the kayfabe moment. That's how I legitimize that. As far as the title, the title being defended or not being defended is something they pull out when they need to. People cried a fucking river when we took the title off Naomi, who didn't deserve it in the first place. She didn't. She got that title because of what month it happened to be, and then she got it back a second time in a big, glorious retribution moment because WrestleMania happened to be in her hometown. So they took it off her, they screwed her so that they could give her another bullshit moment they don't deserve. And the title thing, I mean, CM Punk got injured. And we didn't see him for a while, but they didn't strip the title off him, and nobody complained about it at that point because people like CM Punk. The only reason people complain about Brock Lesnar having the title for so long and not defending it is because he's not there at all. And they're just getting sick of him, and he sort of exists in a bubble on his own above WWE, and people resent that. People care about rules like this when it suits them. If their guy is the champion and doesn't defend it for a while, they don't care because their guy is the guy. If Miz becomes the Universal Champion again, if Miz wins the Rumble, I made a hot take prediction. One of my predictions last night was it would be really cool if The Miz won the Royal Rumble as the Intercontinental Champion, went on to defeat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, champion versus champion. If he did that, I would be over the moon marking out. I wouldn't say that it was right or wrong, but I would be personally marking out. And I, personally, wouldn't care if he didn't defend the belt for the next 6 months, because he's my guy and my guy has the title. Now, if it's Roman Reigns, if it's Cena, if it's, you know, whoever else, then yeah, I would, because I wouldn't be invested in that. But that's because all wrestling fans have biases. Yeah, WWE changes these rules on a dime when it suits them, but fans also care about these rules or not when it suits them. So are WWE hypocrites? Yes, but at the same time I think fans are hypocrites as well. Hope that explains my thoughts on that. Do you think Raw and SmackDown's women's division should have a tag title or a mid-card title? Something like an Intercontinental Champion, seeing as both of the divisions are getting more stacked, etc. I don't know about the tag team division thing, because I'm so scared, and we've talked about this before on other Q&As and when I've been on with Kristen and Guapo. I'm so scared that if they do a women's tag team division, they're just going to take the women that they already have and smush them into teams. And, I mean, we don't like that with the men. We don't like, you know, Jordan and Gable right now. Sometimes it works. Sheamus and Cesaro works. You know, Goldust and Cedric Alexander is apparently a thing. If they were to do the tag team division thing, I wouldn't want it to be like, hey, we've got this many women now, why don't we start making tag teams? If you want to start a women's tag team division, you need to go and have an entirely different booking and recruiting mindset and go out into the indies, into the performance center, etc., and find some women's tag teams. Now, I do agree that the women should have a mid-card title, eventually. Not yet, but I will say eventually, because there's only one thing to aspire to on any given brand. I mean, now, you can win the NXT title and then get booked to SmackDown and win that title and then get traded to Raw and win that title. You can progress like that, but within a particular brand, there's only one title. If you debut on Raw, and if you're a guy that debuts on Raw, I should say, sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit here, but you can go and you can get a mid-card title, or you can get a Money in the Bank, or you can get if you're a small enough guy, you can go for the Cruiserweight title, and then you can do some tag teaming for a little bit, and then you can work yourself up to a world title. That's a natural progression storyline. There's no natural progression for the women's divisions because there's only one title. You're there, and you're either in the title picture or you're not. And it's very black and white. And once you've got there, there really is an element of, well, okay, what now? If there is a mid-card champion... They're talking about doing a mid-card championship on NXT as well, for the guys. And I think it's great for the same reason, because if you're a singles guy on NXT, there's one title to go for. If you're a singles woman on any of the divisions, there's only one title to go for, and if you're not in that title picture, you're pretty much not doing anything unless you've got a personal rivalry going on with somebody. But as far as accomplishments, you've only got one thing to go for, and a lot of other people probably lined up ahead of you. So, yes, eventually a women's mid-card title would be great. Women's tag team division is a little bit of a different story because you'd have to look outside of what you already have to make that happen properly. What do you think about the women's division matches having female refs and female commentators, etc., and then you go on to give a bunch of examples? I do like, there is one female referee on NXT, and I can't think of her name at the moment. There are times where we've had female commentators. Renee Young used to commentate on the women's matches in NXT, which I thought was great. Lita obviously doing the Mae Young Classic. Beth Phoenix doing the Mixed Match Challenge now. I would love to see more female referees. I would love to see more female commentary staff. I wouldn't specifically attach it to the women's matches, though, because it still feels like, on the one hand, you're giving women more opportunity, on the other hand, you're still pigeonholing them. Okay, you're a woman, you want to be a commentary, okay, cool, we'll stick you over here doing this girls' match. If you're going to have a woman commentator, you should have it for the whole show. If you decide that you're going to replace Booker T, please replace Booker T. Throw Beth Phoenix on there, but just make her the third voice on Raw. Don't bring her out for one segment. I didn't like when they did it with Austin Aries, when Austin Aries was on commentary, and they brought him out only to commentate the cruiserweight matches, and then he fucked off again. I don't like that, because it feels like there's a little bit of a built-in stereotype. Would I like to hear a female commentary? Would I like to see somebody like an AJ Lee come back and be the third voice on SmackDown? Can you imagine Tom Phillips, Corey Graves, and AJ Lee? That would be great. I don't think you pigeonhole it to one segment, one match, because then you're still saying, hey, we're going to let women do this, but we're still going to limit them. I don't think you necessarily have to do that. And the same thing with the refereeing, because unless it's a situation or a booking decision where in a match where a referee has to take a really bad bump, then, okay, you don't have that person doing that particular match. But if you're just in there to be the authority figure and keep the order, so to speak, if you're going to hire female referees, then they should be able to referee any matches. Jacqueline used to referee. But then again, Jacqueline also held the Cruiserweight Championship at one point, so that's probably not the greatest example in the world. Should 205 Live have a separate general manager like Rey Mysterio or somebody, seeing as they already have a separate commentary team? Well, they kind of have a separate commentary team, because they have Vic Joseph, who doesn't bring anything to the table, in my opinion, and they borrow Nigel McGuinness from NXT. Now, obviously, these questions were asked over a month ago. Gary, maybe you saw the future. You know, Enzo Amore got fucked over. We're going to get a brand new Cruiserweight champion soon, and we are going to have a new general manager. I don't want it to be Rey Mysterio. I really don't. There's rumors that it'll be Dean Malenko or Billy Kidman or some people that are already working within the company. Rey Mysterio comes out, he's just going to be a cartoon character, and that'll be annoying. Should it have a separate general manager? I'm waiting to see it this coming Tuesday, because I think putting a general manager on that show is going to be a little bit of a facelift for the show, and I'm really interested to see what they do. But they could fuck that all up, too. There could be another Brad Maddox or a Mike Adamle situation there. What do you think of Starrcade not being on the network? Should Starrcade come back properly and be SmackDown's WrestleMania to cut back on the hours of wrestling? They could both be on the same weekend. You could do Hall of Fame Thursday, NXT TakeOver Friday, SmackDown Starrcade, Raw WrestleMania, Raw and SmackDown. No. Just no, because then you're asking fans, and I'm not just saying for those of us in the YWC that would have to be reporting on this and reacting to it and whatever, you're asking fans to absorb way too much at that point. You're talking about a solid string of wrestling from Thursday to Tuesday that people would be blowing their brains out. Starrcade, I don't think Starrcade not being on the network is a big deal. They had a house show that they wanted to make feel real special, so they gave it a particular name, and they threw some extra interesting matches in there and did some nostalgia stuff with Dustin Rhodes, which is all good. I'm sure the show was great. I'm sure it was fun for the people that were there, but it was just other matches that were happening on the way to whatever pay-per-view was coming next. I don't think we need to resurrect a whole bunch of WCW pay-per-views. I mean, they brought back Bash at the Beach, and then they shortened it to The Bash, which was lame. I could say the same thing about WarGames, but Triple H took the WarGames concept and made it 2017 appropriate. He made his own version, NXT's own version of it. It was different, and that made it work. But just throwing a name on a pay-per-view in the hopes that people are going to buy, you can call a pay-per-view whatever you want. You can call it, you know, Backlash and have a Hell in the Cell match as your main event, or you can call it Hell in the Cell and have the Hell in the Cell main event. If the card is good, it's good. Now there obviously are exceptions to this. I mean, Great Balls of Fire was a fucking retarded name for a pay-per-view. But for the most part, the name of a pay-per-view doesn't dictate how good it is, how bad it is. And if they want to come up with specific names for house shows, then no, I'm not going to cry about them not being put on the network, because ultimately it was a glorified house show and did not have any long-standing effects on what's going on television. So televising it might have fucked a bunch of people up as far as continuity goes. Now, they did, I have to be careful here once again with my bias, because they did take a house show up here in Toronto that was supposed to be just a house show and turn it into a pay-per-view special on the network. And that was how you got the first Roadblock pay-per-view. Not Roadblock End of the Line, which was stupid, but the original Roadblock that emanated from the Ricoh Center in Toronto. I was there. It was, as well, a glorified house show. I mean, the main event was Dean Ambrose versus Triple H. Did we really think Dean Ambrose was going to beat Triple H for the title? Am I pissed off that they didn't televise it? No. Should they separate WrestleMania into 2 days, making that weekend a 6-day weekend? You're asking way too much from the fans of that. You're asking for way too much attention from the fans at that point. And you're asking way too much money for the people that are actually going to go. Because that's 6 shows. That would be, as you just laid out here, you would have the Hall of Fame, Takeover, Starrcade, WrestleMania, Raw, and SmackDown. You're asking people to buy 6 tickets. You're asking people to take 6 or 7, depending on where they're coming from, days off work. I get what you're saying. You know, WrestleMania is too long. Let's parse it out a little bit. But I don't think you can do that, man. It's an interesting concept. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think so. What do you think about Money in the Bank coming back as a dual pay-per-view as part of one of the big 4? I already talked about that. As long as we're not getting beaten over the head with 4 ladder matches, I think it's going to be really good if that is the case. I haven't really actually seen any confirmation of that, to be perfectly honest with you. I hope it's true. Do you think we will ever see a women's elimination chamber match, or a women's stretcher match, or a women's ambulance match, or a women's last woman standing match, or I quit match? Last woman standing, we could definitely see, because it's just a variation on a regular match. An I quit match, same sort of thing. You get people in there that are submission. Like, not every I quit match is going to be like Rock McFoley, where people are getting like friggin' scrambled egg-headed with chairs. You could just get 2 women in there that are really, really good with like cranking their submissions, and you could have an I quit match. That's not a problem. Chamber, I would like to see. I'm not entirely sure. Stretcher match is kind of lame in general, so is the ambulance match, and those 2 gimmicks kind of lead into each other anyway. I would like to see the chamber match. Don't know if it's going to happen. Stretcher and women's ambulance match, I don't really care to see, personally. Last woman standing and I quit, they could definitely do. I mean, they've done the women's Iron Man. They could do a last woman standing. Do you think CM Punk and Cody Rhodes will ever be back in the WWE, or will they eventually go into the Hall of Fame? Here's the thing. The one I see more likely to come back and compete in WWE again is Cody, but the one I see more and more likely to be going up into the Hall of Fame eventually is CM Punk. Because I'm sorry, I know everybody's sucking Cody Rhodes' dick right now, and they love his blonde hair, and it's great, and he's in the schmuck club with the young schmucks and Kenny Obeda, but CM Punk is a bigger star than Cody Rhodes. Hot take. Let me say it one more time for you. CM Punk is a bigger star now, not even in WWE, not even in wrestling anymore, than Cody Rhodes. So yes, Cody Rhodes could definitely come. He's got family ties to the company. He can come back if he wants to. CM Punk probably won't, but he'll end up in the Hall of Fame one day. That's about it. Hope you had a great Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and yours, and keep up the great work. Thank you very much to Gary Monahan. Thank you to Gary. Thank you to Mizark10. Thank you to Cheney815. Thank you to all of you for listening. As I said, put your questions down in the box below. The next Q&A will be in March, in the week or weeks leading into WrestleMania. We are in that Christmassy time of the wrestling year between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. I hope you guys have a great Royal Rumble / NXT Takeover Philadelphia weekend. I will be up here at some point to talk about them. I'm pretty sure that Kristen and Guapo and I are going to do an aftermath video for everything that happens after Rumble and Takeover. But until then, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys. Don't